All right, you are now tuned in to the Players Den podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest with us today, Bob Rathbun. Go ahead and get into.
Yeah, we have a legend in the building. Been doing broadcasting for the Hawks for over 20 years. Got numerous awards, including the Emmy that we want to talk about. And it's just it's a dream come true. I've been trying to do this for a couple of years now. I met Bob back in college. I emailed him and told him, how I felt about his work ethic, and, how much he meant to me as a broadcaster for the Hawks, because you've been around for a long time.
Man, I've been hearing your voice my whole life, Bob.
And I told him the same thing. I've been around since '94. You came in Atlanta in '96.
Yeah.
So you built that groundwork for me to become a big fan of the Hawks. I appreciate you, all the hard work you have done for the Hawks, and the passion that you bring as a broadcaster every night. Is nobody can match it. It's a big effort. You do more than Hawks games. You do the dream. You have did Braves games in the past. And you just recently did the TBT tournament that was featured on ESPN. Yep. I'm like, my man Bob is everywhere.
You're working, Bob.
Yeah, you got to.
When do you get a day off, man?
What's that?
When do you get a day off?
No days off. Basketball's 365.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about how I met you before we get into, everything about you.
Sure.
But it started, I was a senior in college, and it was before my first play-by-play. I had to do the stats for the game, had to tweet for the game. I had to do pretty much the whole package by myself. And I was just like, let me just email Bob Rathbun to see if I can get any type of help. And it's crazy because you called me the day of, which was Friday. You called me the day of, and you told me like, hey, pretty much like people get paid big money to do all of that by themselves. And I was an intern. They was paying me $50 for a package, and they set me up. I was my first high school game by myself, and they made me do everything. But you helped me. You told me about the pin technique. That was definitely helpful, right? Doing stats and doing the play-by-play and knowing when a guy pick up the ball at the 25 for a punt return and just adding those numbers up. And you also told me if they had an announcer there, broadcaster, to sit by him, and that's what I did. That helped me a lot. The away team, which was crazy, the away team had an announcer at the game, and he did play-by-play with the stats. So he helped me a lot, and I definitely appreciate you for that. And I just feel like he's just a big mentor to me. It just helped me grow. That helped me grow. That helped me be the person I am today as a journalist, and I just appreciate you for it.
Of course. Well, Tony, I'm happy to do it. Share the knowledge. That's kind of my words to lie, and happy to help broadcasters, because I had plenty of people help me to get started. So I just like to keep that chain going.
And let's go ahead and get into that. So when did you know you was going to be in sports? When did you know broadcasting was for you?
Yeah, I was 12 years old, guys.
Right.
I got a chance to have a tour of the radio station in my hometown back in North Carolina. And the second I walked in that building, I knew this was for me. I fell in love with it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. The guys at the station were nice enough to let me keep hanging around. And one day the sports guy showed up, and he wanted help on, at that time it was in the summer, so it was baseball. And that morphed into football and basketball after that, keeping stats and whatnot. But he let me do a half an inning of a baseball game, when I was 12 years old. And that's that's how it started for me.
Wow.
My voice was a little higher then. But that's how it started. And I knew, I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And I was lucky, growing up in a small town. I don't know if you could do it in a big city, but small town, they were cool about it, me hanging out. And I'd help out best I could, kept stats and, did whatever needed to be done. All the stuff that the announcers didn't want to do. file records and, take care of the news wire and all that stuff.
Okay.
But when I was 19, I was a sophomore in college, and I had worked at the station all along, and I also wrote for the newspaper in my hometown, covered my high school team.
Okay.
And it was a daily paper. So that was great training too. But when I was 19, the sports guy left, and the people at the radio station said, "Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Sure." So I went to college full time, and I worked full time.
Wow.
And loved every second of it. I'd go into the station at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't get done till 10 o'clock at night, and I couldn't get enough. And I did it 7 days a week.
Wow.
And it was great. And I was a speech major at Catawba College, a D2 school in North Carolina, in my hometown.
And that's where you're from, yeah.
Yep. And the head of the department, who turned into a great friend, Carl Hales, said, "You know what you want to do, so let's tailor your education to get the most out of it." And I was a speech major at Catawba, and that training helped me immensely, because I would take what I learned in the classroom
Mm-hmm.
and immediately apply it to the broadcast, whether it was the studio or play-by-play, what have you. And that's kind of what college should be, right?
Right. It should be like that.
Right? I mean, that's the real world in action.
Right.
So I would take it from one to the other, and that helped me so much. And then in my hometown, again, this is just a lucky stroke that Salisbury was the headquarters of the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Association. There was a restaurateur who wanted, back in the, I guess, mid 60s, he wanted to promote his boxing matches. And he thought it would be a good way to get all the writers of prominence, when they made the trek from Greensboro, covering the Greater Greensboro Open a week before the Masters. And they would all drive through Salisbury on their way to Augusta.
Okay.
So he held them over a night or two, and they had this award ceremony. And it caught on, and they honor the state winner in sportscasting and sports writing, and the national winners, and now they have a Hall of Fame. It's since moved to Winston-Salem, but when I was a kid, it was right there. And when I was 16 and got my license, I was on the transportation committee.
Okay.
And what that meant was I had to drive to the Charlotte airport and pick everybody up and bring them back.
Wow.
And so in the back seat of my car, I had the biggest names in broadcasting, and quite frankly, the biggest names in sports. I mean, I had Jesse Owens in the back seat of my car because he was coming to school. And all the great sportscasters, Lindsey Nelson, Keith Jackson, Chris Schenkel, all these guys. But what it did for me, fellas, it demystified the business.
Okay.
Because they were so encouraging. Because I told them, I want to do what you do.
Right.
I would pick their brain for the 45 minutes we were in the car together.
I would too.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you do it? How do you work on your voice? All that kind of stuff. And that was incredibly valuable. And so, all that kind of, came together. And so when I was 19, I was doing it full time. I got my first break when I was 25 and went to Norfolk, Virginia to do Old Dominion and William and Mary. And that was right at the time when regional television was coming on the scene. Cable was just starting to catch hold. And that's when all the RSNs popped up, and I started working for one out of DC. It's Masson now, but back then it was Home Team Sports.
Wow.
And I would fill in on the Orioles and the Wizards because the main guy, Mel Proctor, was off doing other stuff. And they had me do a bunch of college basketball and football and all that. And so I got into TV. I anchored back in Norfolk, did radio and TV because we were all in the same building. AM, FM, TV, sort of like the WSB of Norfolk, and did that. And I mean, I just had a blast and worked there for 14 years, went to work for ESPN, went to work for CBS,
Resume.
did it all there, went to Detroit, did 3 years of baseball for the Tigers.
Right.
Then came to Atlanta in 96 to do the Braves and the Hawks, and been here ever since. They can't get rid of me.
So How did you feel when the Hawks was like, hey, like we noticed your work. Can we get you here? How
Tony,
was that easy?
it's no, it's never easy. It's a lot of luck, actually. But one thing, you never burn bridges, right? Because you
Yes,
never
sir.
know
Right.
who you're going to see down the road. And one of my ACC basketball, this is my 36th year doing ACC basketball, and one of my producers for Raycom became the coordinating producer of Sports South,
Wow.
which was a Turner property at that time. Now we became Fox 3 months after I got here in January of '97, but I came when it was Sports South. Okay. And this was at a time when Ted had to sell off a bunch of properties because of one of the many mergers of TBS. And so we were spun off and Fox bought us in '97. But that producer was the CP. He had an opening and he hired me.
Wow.
Because I had both baseball and basketball in my background.
Right.
You know, I had done the Orioles and the Tigers. And of course I had done filling in for the Bullets, but I'd done a ton of college basketball and I was working for CBS. So I had credibility in both sports, and that sort of opened the door. And the Hawks were cool with it. You know, I replaced Tim Brando back in '96, and Lee Douglas, who was the guy in charge of the Hawks broadcasting at the time, and who is, he's now with the Florida Gators property down in Gainesville, but we're as tight as could be. And he just said, listen, we don't care what you do. You just cannot miss a Hawks game. Because Brando was gone all the time. You know, he was doing SEC football, or he's doing this and doing that, blah, 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 blah. And Lee said, he's never here. We want somebody to do every game. If you do every game, we don't know what you do. Now, at that time, remember, the Hawks and Braves were all owned by Turner.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of a big family. And we were in it. And that's how I came to Atlanta.
Wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing story.
That's a great story.
Yeah. I do want to ask you a follow-up question about what you said about your early years when you got your license. You had all of the greats in the back of your car. I wonder what type of car did you have as a 16-year-old back then? What were they riding?
I was very fortunate because I got to drive a brand new Buick from the Salisbury Motor Company, which was on loan to NSSA to do just what I was doing.
So they said, here you go, Bob.
They didn't know that wasn't my car.
Okay. Okay.
Had to turn that bad boy in after the ceremonies.
Right.
Dang.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you, well, we see you work with some of the greats, Steve Smith, Dominique Wilkins, on a night in, night out basis. What is it like working with those guys, and what type of relationships do you build with them as you work with them?
Well, Smitty, I just saw the picture pop up behind you.
Yeah, man.
What a sweetheart. We've become very good friends. He was one of my favorite Hawk players.
Yeah,
he was still playing for us.
Right.
Yeah.
And then to see him go on and do the things that he's doing over at Turner, just great. And he's one of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life. Now, Dominique and I go back to high school, which is crazy. Yeah. In North Carolina in the 70s, mid 70s, they had a feud going on with the Western schools in the state with everybody else. And for years, the Western North Carolina schools had their own association. So we never had a statewide title like is so common now. Okay. Because they thought they were getting screwed on schedules and all this. And so they said, you know what, we'll just play amongst ourselves. David Thompson, I think you may be familiar with that name.
Yes.
Greatest player in the history of the ACC. And don't let anybody tell you different. He is and will always be the greatest player in the history of the conference. He played at a little high school in Shelby, North Carolina called Crest High School, CREST. Went unbeaten his senior year and lost the state or the Western final to Salisbury High School, and I got to broadcast that game. It was played at Catawba.
Wow.
Only loss he had in high school his senior year. And of course, he went on to NC State and didn't lose again, until his sophomore year when UCLA beat him, and then they beat UCLA to end the Bruins' great streak. But I say all that. After that, there was a come to Jesus meeting, and they had a complete state unification in high school at all levels, 5A, 4A, 3A, whatever. I'm doing high school basketball. I did Salisbury High School, football and basketball. And our team, in the first year of the statewide tournament, played Washington, North Carolina, Dominique's high school team. It was his junior year in high school. And we played in Durham. And his team had 5 guys that looked like Dominique. My team had 5 guys that looked like me. Mm-hmm. So Washington, North Carolina prevailed big time. They only lost 1 game. He only lost 1 game in high school. But that's how I first got to meet Dominique Wilkins. Later, when he was at Georgia, I did an NIT game at Stegman between Old Dominion and Georgia. So I did him in high school and I did him in college. And then when I got to the NBA full-time, he was still playing at Orlando. He was wrapping up his career. So I got to call his games there. And for the last 14 years, he's been by my side doing the Hawks TV.
And so it's the best. It's like the best combination of
I know, isn't that crazy?
That duo is
the duo is just, man, I like win or lose draw, I'm watching the Hawks game on TV. Like, the atmosphere is great inside, but I'm like, damn, what is Bob Rathbun and Dominique saying right now? Like, that be in my mind. Like, what? I know Bob going crazy right now. Trey done hit 3 threes back to back. I know Bob got people at home shouting. Like, that's what be in my mind when I'm at the game.
Right.
So I don't get to catch a lot of what you say at home games because I'm in the building, but a lot of the away games I do catch on TV, and it just reminds me of back in the day as a kid, just loving the Hawks and hearing your voice and not knowing one day we'll be having this conversation. Yeah. So this is an incredible moment for us, and man, you're such a legend.
Oh, thanks. Sometimes when people say legend, I think that's just another word for old. But
no, we mean like the resume, like I said, me being 28, I'm 28 years old. Since I've watched Hawks basketball, I've heard your voice. Like it's a different vibe to it. Like, yep. A lot of people didn't really, watch us, early on, but I mean, man, like when I tell you, like I was telling my boy Wayne, like I have to sit down and talk with Bob. Like this is like a scratch off bucket list. Like we needed this. Like, yeah, I definitely appreciate it.
What keeps me going are guys like you all, the fans. They mean so much to me, and I speak for Dominique in the same vein. Neither of us would be where we are without the support of the fans.
Yeah.
And we don't take it for granted. I try to bring it each and every night. Can't wait to get started.
Man,
our first broadcast is a week from tonight. So we're both excited and can't wait to get going because I think we're going to have a really good team.
Which players are you excited to see this season?
Well, DeJounte for sure.
Man,
great addition. Amazing addition.
This is one of I can't remember the last time, if ever, the Atlanta Hawks have traded for an all-star in his prime.
We talked about this in the barbershop. We talked about this. Like
I don't think we've ever done it.
No.
We've had a bunch of Hall of Fame players, the Moses Malones and the Walt Bellamy's and all the guys that have come, but they were, generally speaking, toward the end of their career.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or they was starting, or who we had was starting their career.
Right.
Got rid of. So
Pistol was just getting started.
Right.
And, Luke kind of came with so it's always been. We've had a ton of great players and a ton of Hall of Famers, but we've never really traded for an all-star in his prime before.
And it feels great for Trey to just be able to just breathe. Like take it off your hand. You're not like, you don't have to do it all tonight. Like you can sit back a little bit, and that's something like I never wanted him to get frustrated with. I want Trey to be here for the long haul, but it takes talent and help. He's going to need that help. And this in the backcourt, not having to, we try to hide him on defense, but we don't have to hide him as much anymore. Maybe we can do something else on defense with him in the offense and Murray on ball. Like, he's a great on ball defender.
Yeah, led the league in steals last year.
Yeah, one thing you're going to notice about Murray is if Trey is not playing defense, he's going to hear about it. This guy, I mean, it's been like all business from the first day he got to town.
He said
he's hungry.
He said that.
He's hungry.
He said he's here for business only.
He really is.
Wow.
So much so that they play pickup games. They ain't no high-fiving. They know, hey, that's okay. Try it next. Nuh-uh. He is out to win. He knocks you down. There's somebody else helping him up, not him.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this guy, no, really. I mean, this guy
That's what we need. That's what we need.
Yes, because everybody will follow.
And see, that's you know the game.
That's exactly what we needed.
Intensity is going to bring intensity. If they see him bringing it, and he's going to bring it, like no question that he's going to bring it. He's going to be on the boards. So I want to see Clint on the boards because this young man is on the board. So I want to. Maybe this team is just going to fight harder. Like,
I think it tends to rub off on everybody because in any sport, the coaches cannot do it all the time. It's got to be the players, particularly at the professional level. They've got to hold themselves accountable. Coach can't be cracking the whip all the time.
I know.
They've got to do their own. And I kind of like what I see. Now, I haven't seen them obviously since they left, but practices have been spirited.
Okay.
It's been, it's just sort of an edge to it, and again, I think the energy is a direct result of DeJounte being here. It's infectious.
That's great news.
That sounds great.
That said, it's going to take some time. I'd give us 20 games and see where we are. But I think we're different from last year. We're going to be much better defensively, but we might not shoot the ball as well off the bench. I think the first unit will score with anybody.
That's on the same thing.
But, losing Gallo, losing Herter, our three-point shooting might suffer a little bit off the bench. But I think we'll more than make up for it with pace, energy, defense, rebounding, getting after it. So I'm excited. I love these guys, and I love them as people, and I love them as basketball players. They're just so much fun to be around.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to do well. I really do.
So what are your expectations as far as maybe seeding or playoffs or for the Hawks?
Hard to say. The East at the top, it's like 10 teams in the East. I think we're all pretty much the same. I would give Milwaukee a bit of an edge. I think they're a little cut above, but everybody else, I think you could throw a hat over them all. Mm-hmm. Nobody's talking about Brooklyn. They could be very good. It could also collapse, but they could be very good.
Yeah.
All right. Philadelphia. Nobody's talking about Toronto. I think everybody's sleeping on Toronto.
Great defensive team. Great coaching.
Cleveland starting 3 All-Stars. They better be pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Miami.
Uh-huh.
Went to Eastern Conference Finals. Nobody's talking about them.
Right.
Us. Right. So, I mean, there's 7 right there. I just think the realistic goal for the Hawks, let's try to win 50 games, 30 at home, 20 on the road. Okay. And see where that gets us. Because I think that'll get us in the top 6. Now, if we can do better than that, maybe top 4.
Okay.
But I think 50 wins will get you in the top 6. Now, that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
No.
You can count on one hand the number of times we've done that as a franchise. But I think that for this group is a realistic goal. I really do. And but it's the other thing we've got to do, and this is something that only the hardcore fans like you guys realize we got to win tiebreakers. This thing is going to be so close. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get those tiebreakers in your back pocket. And you've got to do that starting opening night. You can't take games off in October, November, like in years past.
Right.
The play has changed this.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah. Well, I think those previous statements.
We got to win the tiebreakers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think the previous statements that were made last year, we're going to play like always. We're ready for the playoffs. I think they're just going to play through this year. Last year wasn't the same. Like I said, the intensity wasn't there.
No,
like I said, bringing in Murray is definitely gonna help the intensity and be able to close games. Finishing games was a problem. Like fourth quarter finishing games, that we got to do it. Like is not you up third quarter 15 and then you lose by 3. No, let's be up 15 and go and win by 10. Let's keep it. Let's just keep it. Let's keep it up. And I'm just waiting to see that.
And the funny thing is that the year before, it was just the opposite.
Right.
We were behind all the time and winning games. So,
right.
You know, the one thing about last year's team, and they're young and they're still young. I mean, most of these guys are just now hitting their prime. But you've got to gear yourself up physically, mentally, emotionally to play an 82-game season. Now, until last year, we hadn't played an 82-game season in 3 years.
Right.
And they were still on the high from going to the Eastern Conference Finals. We had a very short offseason, as all teams
very short
played long.
Yeah.
Our last game was right around the 4th of July. So we had a short offseason. We had 3 guys with procedures that weren't ready they couldn't even run until October 1st. We never really got it going.
Right.
You know, we lost 10 straight home games. That's unheard of.
That was tough.
And
that
as
was
a fan, it was tough to endure.
It was tough.
And bad teams.
Uh-huh.
Now we're losing to San Antonio and Houston and
Kings
Charlotte. What are we doing? But again,
understand.
that's the mental focus. It wasn't there.
Right.
That's going to change.
Right.
I think we'll be ready to go from opening night on, and I'm excited to see what this team can do.
Yeah, I think the X factor is John Collins. I think if he meshing with Murray and Trey, the sky will be the limit for these guys. Because if they turn into that fast break team where you got to worry about Trey, John Collins, and Murray, that's going to be tough. You're not going to know what to do. Trey's going to spot up. Murray can bring the ball up. Trey can bring the ball up. Find Murray. It's just going to be like I want to see Clint running the floor more. Like I want to see that. On fast break, I want to see Clint getting down there with Trey, so Trey don't have to back out. We can just go right at him. Let's attack.
I would add one more name to that list, and that's DeAndre Hunter. Obviously, he's got to stay healthy.
Right.
But I think the thing particularly with this team, he doesn't have to score 30.
Oh.
But he can't score 2.
No.
He's got to get 15 every night. Be
Man.
that consistent scoring threat at the 3. And we'll play him a lot at the 4 too, I think. But be that consistent scoring threat. You know, he showed, I thought, you know, like game 4 and 5 against Miami in the playoffs, that, you know, this guy's got a lot of talent that hasn't been tapped. And I think injuries have been the major part of that.
Right.
But Hunter's got to be a big time player at that 3 to make this whole thing come together.
Definitely.
And I talk about that all the time. He has to have a huge year 4, his year 4 in the league jump, and just that, like you said, that consistent. I personally want him to average about 16 to 17, but if we can get 15 consistently every single night. And Trey and DeJounte are, you know, doing what they have to do and playing like all-stars. John Collins steps up. I would like for him to rebound more as well, but he can also be in that 16, 17-point range and flirt with 10 rebounds, you know, here and there. And of course, Capella, you know, just a double-double, 10 and 10, and good defense. Like if we can do those things, man, I think the sky's the limit. We got Bogey coming off the bench. I think he'll be a 6-man of the year candidate when he gets healthy. And we brought in guys like Holiday, well, both Holidays actually.
Justin and
Two of the three.
Yeah. I'm very excited. My personal expectations for the Hawks, I think we will make the top 6 in the East. Like you said, I can't tell you where, but if I had to guess, I would say 4 to 6 range. I don't think we'll be a top 4 team, but I think we have potential to be a top 4 team. And I'm just super excited for the season. I'll be in the stands every night cheering them on. And
well,
yeah.
the big thing for all of us is health. You cannot suffer through catastrophic injuries to your main guys. No team can.
Right.
And if we have good health, I think we'll be fine. John Collins' rebound numbers dropped a little because Capella showed up.
Right. Yeah.
When the guy next to you is getting 10 a night, that doesn't leave too many. But John gets the rebound. But I'll tell you another guy that's going to have a big season is Onyeka Okongwu. He's ready to break free.
I love Double O. Yeah.
He'll eat into Capella's minutes. I think he's going to get a chance to play a lot.
Wow.
And that second unit, their energy is going to hinge, I think, on how well Onyeka does. Because he's added a little jump shot.
I was about to bring that up. I definitely saw that
he-
jumper. If he can make that consistently,
He can go out to 10, 12 feet now and knock it down.
and that's love.
We need that.
That's love. That's big love.
This is good space.
Did you have any other questions?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. So we noted we talked about some of the teams that you've worked with, whether it was college, the Dream, WNBA, Hawks, whatever the case may be. What was one of your favorite teams to cover outside of the Hawks?
Ooh, great question. Well, I had a lot of fun doing the Braves because that was in their other heyday, not the one right now,
Right.
the one where they were winning 14 straight division titles. We won so many regular season games and the ones that we got to do, but I'll never forget the night Andres Galarraga, came back from cancer to play. That was so emotional. One of my real big highlights. I think watching guys like Maddox and Glavin and Smoltz on a nightly basis was
goodness.
We did an April game in Philadelphia, and it was about 40 degrees below zero. And we're at the Vet, that awful stadium in Philadelphia, the worst AstroTurf in the history of sports. And Maddox is pitching. I think he had 1 3-ball count, and we were out of there in 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Oh,
I mean, it's just,
no way.
He could put it in a teacup. But just watching him pitch, watching Glavin, Smoltz, what John did as a starter, and then he went to the bullpen and set all kinds of saves records. Then he comes back as a starter. I mean, it's nuts. So a lot of highlights with that. I think, working for CBS was pretty cool. Doing the NCAA tournament, that was a big highlight for me. It wasn't one game so much as just being a part of that broadcast team. I worked with Billy Packer and Dan Bonner and guys that I worked the ACC games with, so there was a lot of familiarity there. But I got a chance to call the Women's Final Four for ESPN, College World Series. I mean, I've just been blessed to have a chance to do a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I did the first game in Arena Football League history.
Oh wow.
Yeah, back in the summer of 1987. That was pretty wild.
Okay.
They had no rule book, no rosters, no information, and we just had to go.
Oh wow.
My partner was Lee Corso.
I know y'all had a blast.
First
Oh,
game.
my
Quick story before we go. We're doing the first ever game. ESPN had budgeted 2 hours. We're on the air for 3.5. They're pulling their hair out in Bristol to get to Sports Center, and we're playing this arena football game. 3.5 hours we're on the air. But the quarterback, Chicago against Denver, and Chicago throws the touchdown pass on like the second play from scrimmage for the first touchdown in arena football history. This guy, it's like playing on concrete. The guy stretches out, makes a catch on the turf and on the bottom of the Rosemont Horizon floor. And Corso just leaps up and he says, Ladies and gentlemen, that was the greatest catch in the history of arena football. First touchdown.
At that moment, it was. He wasn't wrong.
Hey, as they got catching that, I'm taking that from Lee Corso. I'm taking that.
That's a cool story.
We had a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Favorite Hawks memory? A quick one. A quick favorite Hawks
I
memory?
did ask that a lot, and it there have been obviously a lot here and there, but I will never ever forget the 60-win team.
Same here.
Okay.
Man. How we did the West that year?
Oh my God.
That team was unstoppable.
We won 19 games in a row.
We swept the Clippers that year. It was just like, wow, like we did a lot of damage that year.
Yeah.
Looked like a championship
19
team.
straight wins. That's a quarter of your schedule.
Yeah.
And but the best part about it is to see Atlanta and Hawks fans everywhere
Happy.
just puffing out their chests.
And I was puffing out my chest that year.
With pride. Look at our boys.
Yeah.
When I drop off my dry cleaning, the little blue-haired lady at the counter says, "Aren't our Hawks doing well?" So the whole town is going nuts.
Right.
And, that Golden State game, I will never forget. That beating them, Corver couldn't miss.
Man,
No.
Corver, man.
He was
Just a cheat code that year. That year was a cheat code.
We missed a shot, and the ball goes in the corner, and Schroeder gets it. Okay.
Mhm.
And so he saves it in the corner and throws it to Kyle. Okay. He's outside the 3-point line. Go back and look at this if you can find it on YouTube. Schroeder just starts going down the other end of the court. He's not waiting for. He know what's
going on.
I mean, he flips the ball and just starts running. I mean, it was a magic carpet ride.
Man.
And I swear to God, if we'd have stayed healthy, because remember, Cephalosha went down when the NYPD took batting practice on his leg.
DeMar was hurt. DeMar was a little banged up.
If we'd have stayed healthy with Cephalosha, we would have beaten Cleveland and gone to the finals. Now, I don't know if we'd have beaten Golden State, but we would have beaten LeBron and we'd have gone to the Eastern Conference Finals. And there's 2 games I'll always think back. What if we had won that game? What would that have done to pro basketball in Atlanta? And what if we'd have won Game 7 in Boston with Neek?
Oh my God,
in '88, right? What would that have done to the Hawks and to the city and to pro basketball here? Those are 2, but we'll never know. But we're on this way right now.
Yeah. As long as we keep elevating.
Just in a minute. But
okay,
Bob, we about to run out of time. We appreciate you coming in.
Yes,
man, what a I appreciate everything you do for me.
Thank you. And
I definitely appreciate it.
This is just the beginning.
Yes, sir.
So stay in touch, and we'll see you at State Farm Arena.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. See you later.
Okay.